mute your mic, and if you wanted to unmute your camera, you could. If not, you don't have to, depending on where you are or what kind of situation.
I'm at a school, and I don't know if they're going to be making an announcement, so I'm going to mute it until they stop talking.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so there's a couple of new things today that we built just the other day for this training and trainings in the future. I've been using Google Docs, which we're going to be using again today, but now we're connecting it back to Literacy TA, and we have a new training platform. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and if you can, I'd like you to follow along, which is going to either require you to kind of minimize your screen so there's two of them, or have them in tabs, have the Google Hangout in a tab, and then have Literacy TA in another. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Okay.
You should see Literacy TA now.
Yes.
Good. If you click on My Account, which is not on my screen, I know it's a little confusing, it's on your screen. If you click on My Account on your computer, you'll be taken to your information.
Okay.
And under My Account, you should, if you're logged in, you should see an online training and then your district, Atlanta Balanced Literacy.
Okay. Let me.
See that?
Yeah, I'm logging in now.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Okay. So we're going to My Account.
Yeah, which is at the top of your
Okay.
web page. Yep. And then when you go in, you should see online trainings.
Yes.
And then you should see Atlanta Balanced Literacy.
Got it.
Click on it, please.
Okay.
And now you should see My Account, and then you should see 4 different titles with boxes next to them and these gauges next to them.
Yes.
Good. All right, so this is our new online platform. So this is where all of our material is going to be housed. And this is where you can go anytime to look at things we've discussed, to look at content, and then this is where you would pull up materials for our training for today. Okay. I'm going to go a little bit backwards because we built this, and then I already had a training with you, and then we built this. So I'm going to just take you through kind of like a tutorial, and we're going to do a little bit of background work. So I want you to click on It's Live and Happening, which is the first training module.
Okay.
And what do you see when you get on this page?
I see It's Live and Happening at the top, and then there's a box where I can press play.
Perfect. And then on the left-hand side, do you see the 4 topics?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. So this is going to be really tough. All you're going to do is click the orange button. Got it. And did it change the green checkbox?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. We're going to go back to the main Atlanta Balanced Literacy, which is the title in the gray section of the page.
Okay.
And now when you go back to that page, you should see a green check mark.
Okay.
You see it?
I see it.
Perfect. So what we just did was basically it's a description of what Live and Happening is. So that's what you and I are doing right now. Instead of you didn't need to go through anything because you already understand it. So let's do the next one. This was our training session from the first time. So click on skill-based instruction.
Yes, I was in that one. I told Dr. Hill I forgot the one from last week, but I was in the very first session, the 14th session.
Well, you're in luck because everyone else forgot the second one too.
Yeah, she told me. That's why I was texting everybody and telling them, let's get on. But I guess they're in school, so I told the person I just had to stop to get online.
Okay. So you are in skill-based instruction now?
Uh-huh.
Do you see the sign-in button in orange? At the top of the page?
Yes.
Okay, click on it, please. What happened when you clicked on it?
It went away and it says, this is our agenda for session 1.
Perfect. Okay, so you did all this. So we're just going to scroll down, keep scrolling past the triangle, the achievement triangle, and this is all of the work that we did our first session. So just press got it at the very bottom of the page.
Now, can I always go back and review this information?
As of right now, the answer is I don't know.
Okay.
We were talking about it today, like how long do we want to keep this material available? So we haven't decided completely. But I like the idea of always having it available.
Well, no, I mean, not necessarily always having it available. Like I started the session and then I had to get off because I had a meeting.
Yeah.
But like I would just like to go back and review it, not necessarily forever, but just.
Okay. Well, we were thinking, like, do we give them a month? Do we give them 2 months?
Okay.
So we don't quite know exactly, but it's from your comment, I think initially you're the first, because I said, everyone's going to want a little extra time. So maybe we should do a month or 2 months. So.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay, so go ahead and click got it. And
okay.
What happened when you click got it?
Turn to the green check again.
Perfect. All right, let's scroll up to the top.
Okay.
So now we're caught up.
Okay.
So we should now be on the cycle of independence. Is there anything on the skill-based instruction page, since we're on it, would you like to go over? There is one thing I added, which is this table, the content-based instruction versus skill-based instruction. It's a green table that has.
Okay. I like this.
Good. Yeah, what we're trying to do is, a lot of times when we talk about how do you explain something to students, sometimes giving them the other example helps us explain the intended outcome.
Yeah, so, especially information about the worksheets and then actually going through the process of analysis evaluation. I think I like that.
Good. So yeah, this is something that I spoke about, but I didn't really show it in any way. This is a new piece that might be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I like that, especially when you're trying to support teachers and just getting them to see the difference in what they're doing and what you're actually looking for.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And then at the bottom here, were you here for the discussion of the achievement triangle?
No, I wasn't. I had to I missed that part. I think I know I had to get offline because I had another meeting. Triangle.
No problem. So as it says up top, the little description above, that this is a model or a diagram that we use to explain our philosophy and communicate our expectations, right? So when in our classroom, in our curriculum that we provide, in all of our activities and assignments, we believe that challenging kids is the most important thing, and that complexity of thought as well as complexity of activities and tasks should increase at every opportunity. But with that should be a tremendous amount of support. And so if ever, there's a lot of double meaning here with an A for achievement. A is a letter grade that we're always trying to achieve for or strive for. So in that A, what holds that A up is this crossbar of support. And the support in the way of modeling, as it's listed underneath, collaboration and explicit teaching of skills, is the key to challenging kids. If you don't support them, then when you challenge them or raise the complexity, they fail, right? They don't do very well because they don't have the ability, the skill level, the knowledge to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. So it ties into balanced literacy because balanced literacy, as well as the gradual release of responsibility, or GRR model, talk about the importance of helping kids and then giving them the opportunity to start doing things on their own, whether it be in a single lesson or over a period of a couple of weeks. And the whole idea of support isn't to hold their hand, but it's to be able to get them to be adaptable and independent learners, as it's stated at the top. So quite simply, the achievement triangle can be summarized into 3 words: rigor and support. We want to make sure that we deliver rigorous curriculum, but at the same time, that curriculum is supported. So that's what we're doing with the achievement triangle. And this achievement triangle is really the foundation to everything that we offer at Literacy TA.
Okay.
Okay, so let's scroll up to the top, and we're going to get to the cycle of independence. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself so I have a better idea of where we're headed today? Are you elementary, middle school, high school, all of it?
I've been middle school all my life until I recently, I'm in a new role this year. Okay. So I am the content course specialist for literacy for K through 8. So I'm elementary and middle school.
Okay, I'm sure that's a very new experience for you.
Yes, it is. So I'm finding my way, and I was very excited about these trainings because this is some of the things that we're struggling with, getting teachers to see on the elementary level, not so necessarily on the middle school level, because I mean, with best practices, we kind of did that all the time. So it's just getting them to understand it. But I really like the chart that you did, as well as the triangle.
Good. Okay. All right. So as we go through this, interrupt me at any time, ask me a question, just have a conversation.
Okay.
That's how I like to run these. That's why it's live. If we didn't want to hear from you, we would just record it and send it out. So I like to adjust. I like to be able to, you tell me, hey, that doesn't work in our county or our district. This is the way we do it. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's figure out a way to get it done.
Okay.
So this is another diagram of the GRR, the gradual release of responsibility. And when we talk about balanced literacy, I mean, I think at the heart of everything we're talking about, we want kids to be able to gain skill knowledge so that they can pick up a text and they can read it on their own. When they get into a jam, they're in a class that is really, really difficult, that they have some things to fall back on and they have some ways of doing it. And what we understand about the GRR model is that, you know, the teacher wants to model and then give the kids more responsibility in groups, and then eventually the students work independently. And in the balanced literacy model, from what I understand, is that that can happen both in a class period during a lesson or over a long period of time. But what both don't talk about that is important to Literacy TA, and which is part of our Literacy TA icon with the ring that goes in a circle, is that this process repeats. So the cycle of independence is not something that just happens once and then my kids are independent, or that by December my kids are now independent of me and can do lots of things without me. This is something that we have to revisit whenever necessary. So the I do is when the teacher is modeling, right? That's when the teacher is under a document camera or doing some sort of read aloud and talking about the text and showing the kids how to do certain things. The we do is now the kids working with the teacher, and the teacher is stopping at times and saying, what do you think I'm going to do? Where do you think I am right now? Why do you think I read it that way? Or what is going to happen here or there? Or what, in my brain, if you were to crawl in there, what do you think I'm going to say now? And get them to start predicting what the teacher or the proficient reader is going to do, or the proficient writer. Then you transfer them over to the they do, and that's when they're working in small groups and pairs. And then finally, the students can stand on their own 2 feet and they start working on whatever it is I've been training them to work on independently. But here's what's interesting. As soon as something becomes new to them or more difficult, so let's say I am working with marking an argument. And I'm teaching my students how to find claims, and I'm teaching my students how to find evidence. And now they're finally at the you do. But I find a new text, and this text does not have very clear claims. They're more implicit in nature. They're suggested. They're not directly stated. I'm going to restart this whole cycle over again. My kids know what claims are. True. My kids know what evidence is. True. But this new text presents a whole new challenge for my kids. And instead of saying, oh, you know how to do this, go ahead and do it on your own, I have to start this cycle over again so that they learn how to identify implicit claims, just as they learn how to do explicit claims. The same is true in elementary school. If I move to a chapter book that has limited character development, right? My students are able to talk about the characters, and they're able to talk about the different events and the choices that the characters made. But then I read a new story, and there might be a sub-character, and there might be some sort of antagonist that wasn't there before. And so now I need to have them be able to talk about the antagonist and how the antagonist works with the protagonist, and how those two characters change the outcome of the story based on their behavior. That's a whole other element of reading that I didn't get to when I just talked about characters in a story. So the cycle starts over again. So at some level, and you're going to see this later in the presentation, you can have multiple cycles happening simultaneously. And I've got a demonstration to explain that, which I think will be helpful. So this is the cycle of independence. It takes what balanced literacy is talking about, and it takes what the gradual release of responsibility is talking about, but it kind of says, hey, don't leave, don't leave those moments of support that are so essential to our students' success. So that's the cycle of independence. Why don't we go ahead and click sign in. I'll click it with you.
Okay. That's something I think, I know me personally, I mean, I understand that, but just explaining it the way that you did makes sense.
Good. That's a good thing.
We're doing it. I mean, I think when you made the statement that, most teachers say, okay, well, I've showed you how to do that. That's our thought process.
Right.
But if I'm introducing a new text and it has different elements, then I have to go back and show the thinking process of how to interact with this particular text.
Right.
Yes. That was an aha moment for me. I'm sorry.
That's good. No, it's good for me to know. I'm jotting it down. New elements and new, features? I'm writing.
I had to go get my book so I can write. Yeah, because that's that aha moment. It was for me, and I don't think that our teachers really think that way.
Well, it's like anything. When you're so close to something, it's really hard to see outside of what you're doing. And it isn't until you have the space like you have right now to reflect and to think and to not be bothered by all the things going on in your normal busy life that you can think about your practice, and you can think about what goes on in the classroom and the kind of decisions that we make, and then say, wow, I never, like you said, that the statement I showed you already, or guys, we've been over this.
Yeah, that's a famous line.
Yeah, we've been over. How many times do we have to talk about this? And sometimes it's just that the text has become a little bit more difficult, and it's now presenting a new challenge, right? The challenges are all so unique in text, and that's what we talk about in text selection. When you choose a text, we don't want you to choose text simply because of the content. We want you to choose the text on how it's also written. if you can understand how a text is written, you're going to be better at teaching students how to attack it, how to get into it. If we're looking purely at content, then we can say things like, we've been over this. Because yeah, we've covered the content.
Mm-hmm.
We've done this work, but maybe you haven't read this way. And maybe you haven't seen ideas presented this way. So, okay, good, awesome. Let's go. We're going to go ahead and drop down to, oh, did you see a check mark show up for Cycle of Independence? On the left-hand side in the gray portion of the page?
Yes, I did.
Good, excellent.
I was focused. I was writing my thoughts from what we were saying. Yeah, but
yeah. It's the hardest thing to talk and write, right?
Yeah. It's there.
So did you click the sign in button though? Underneath the Cycle of Independence, the big circle?
Yes.
Okay.
They're showing me the agenda and...
Good. Excellent. Okay. All right, so this is our agenda. Our homework was to look at the skill library and talk about what you guys saw there. So I'm just going to give you a tutorial if that's okay.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about what we just saw in Literacy TA in the skill library, how we can use it to achieve balanced literacy. And then you and I will kind of work on an activity together.
Okay.
It's amazing how quick the time will go. So I'm going to stay on this screen, so you probably want to switch over to Google Hangout.
Okay, I'm there.
And I guess, actually, I can, because I'm now on our website, I can just jump off of there, which is so nice. Okay, so this is our skill library. Do you know anything about it? Have you used it before?
I was going through it about 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
When I was at a school working with an instructional coach.
Okay.
Just looking at the resources because I had a teacher who was struggling with a particular topic. So just kind of looking at the resources to see what was on there.
Can we use that teacher's context as or that teacher's struggle as a context to go through this? Do you remember what the issue was or the concern?
She was teaching, the standard on the board was author's purpose.
Oh, okay. Sure.
But she went through a whole mini lesson on plot. I mean, it wasn't a mini lesson, it was basically the entire class period.
Okay.
And the instructional coach and I was discussing, how plot could have been mentioned, but it shouldn't have been an entire, an entire lesson. Mm-hmm. So with that, we were trying to find resources. So I don't like to just say this is what you should be teaching, but just going through and trying to find, some things she can pull from.
Yes.
To use that information, to teach that information.
Right. Okay. Well, that one's a tough one because, my stance on author's purpose is you have to do deep reading to understand really what the author is trying to achieve, right?
Yes.
It's not something you find in a text. It's not something you can put your finger on and say, there it is, right? Sometimes writers will tell you, they'll say, my purpose of all this work is to, and we say, thank you, thank you for doing that. But a lot of times that's something that we have to work through, and we can only identify it by asking questions of the text. So was it fiction or nonfiction?
She didn't really get into a text, but her focus should have been nonfiction. Okay,
good. So let's do that. Are you now?
I'm here.
Okay, and what color is the banner up top?
Blue. I'm looking at your screen.
Perfect. Yeah, and I only asked. It's not an accountability thing. It's something I learned when walking someone through a website. They get confused. They think they are where they think they are, and then I ask, "Give me a color," and they're on the wrong page.
Oh yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to say I'm going to click on reading nonfiction. Here's what I love about the library is that you've got all your grade levels right here. So for someone like you, you've got all of the tools right at a click, right on a tab. So our 5 steps to confident reading for middle high, and then our 5 steps to confident reading for 4-5. And if you look down below here, you'll see that this text is changing and getting a little bit easier and more white space is happening. And then over on the right, you're seeing that major color changes. The handouts are changing because we're dropping grade level. And now we're getting into younger readers and writers, right? Okay. So now I can see it's getting even simpler, more white space, and then the handouts are turning to this kind of orange and purple. And then over here is going to be more of our pastel colors, greens and blues. And then you can see very few words here for the process. What's great about this is that this process for reading is the same as middle high. It just, the language is easier, but the steps are the same. And our goal is to take our kids through kindergarten all the way to high school, and through high school with the same idea of how to attack text, how to read a text carefully. So if you're working with a 4-5 teacher and you're learning that the first step is to understand your reading task and the 4th step is for deeper meaning, read for deeper meaning, it's going to be the same when you're working with your middle school folks as well. So step 4 is read for, and step 1 is understanding your reading task. So that's what's really nice for you, is that as you move in and out of the grade levels, you can speak about the same process with the same language. Let's just go, what grade level was she in, did you say?
That was middle school, 7th grade.
Okay. So over on the right-hand side are skills that we pull out of our skill library to line up with the steps. So if I want step 1, I'm going to teach analyzing text-dependent prompts, because this teaches kids how to break down questions that are about their reading. Number 2, step 2 is preview and predict. And you look at step 2, it says preview your text. So this skill aligns to this step. Read for comprehension is read 1, speak 2, write 3. And this is when students read independently 1 paragraph, 1 page, one section. They speak in pairs, that's the speak 2. And then they write 3 ideas from that reading, that's the write 3. So this is called read 1, speak 2, write 3. And this is the idea that kids are just getting an understanding of what they're reading. Then they go into marking a text, the next step. This is all with the same text. So these are all rereads. Here's what's really cool about this page. Up here is a menu of different reading purposes. You see when I click on the arrow? So this is read for main ideas, reading argument, read informational, read collaboratively. Let's say I've got a really noisy class, just loves to talk. I can click read collaboratively, and these refresh, and they're all group work activities.
Cool.
But they follow the process. See that? So it's not like I have to relearn anything. It's still the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But now I have different purposes for my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say I have visual learners in my classroom, or I have a lot of artists and I want to give them an outlet. I click read for visualize, read and visualize, and these activities are about visualization. So visual summary, argument poster. So all these pieces have to do with communicating ideas through images. Read for research. So watch what happens. All of these switch out, evaluating sources, summarizing main ideas, taking research notes.
That would be awesome for our teachers when they go into their science and social studies, their process.
Right. So we have these purposes, so it's cutting out some of the thinking that they have to do and just focus on the process, and then give us a purpose. What do you want to do with your reading today? Well, I want to read argument. All right, are you going to read argument, or are you going to read a short story? Right? No, I'm going to read argument. Okay, so let's choose read argument, and now look at analyzing the author, marking a text, analyzing evidence, and then an argument map. So with your teacher, who you're talking about, this is the one I would choose. I would say, do you want to teach author's purpose? Great. Then let's go ahead and take a look at who the author is. Let's take a look at the type of evidence the author uses. And then let's look at the argument map. And I'm just going to take you there real quickly. So when I click on argument map, or any skill for that matter, it's going to take me to what we call a skill page. So the skill page is where they can find all their handouts and activities, language supports, and planning journals, as well as pacing guides, performance tracker. Do you guys study Danielson or Marzano in your state? Or neither?
In the district, is Marzano.
Marzano. Okay, so this comes right out of Marzano's Art and Science of Teaching.
Okay.
This is a performance tracker that we've adapted from his book.
Oh.
But this here is the guide I would have my students complete. And look what it does. Who is the author?
Oh.
What's the situation or context the author is responding to? What is the author's purpose or motivation? Who is the intended audience? What is the argument being made? And then what's the key evidence?
Okay.
See that? So all of these questions are essential to getting to the author's purpose, right? This is called the argument. This is the argument map. Right?
And that would have been good for her because, like I said, she's spent the entire time on something. I mean, plot is relevant because you have to go through the entire plot to understand this purpose, like we discussed. But it was going left because the kids were focusing more on, the plot rather than what was the purpose.
Good. More on the text and not on the author.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I learned as being a middle school teacher. The major change that middle school teachers have to experience and teach their kids to do is move away from what the story or text says and think about more what the author does. And there's a major shift from elementary school to middle school, and that shift is the change in how we talk about text. We don't talk about, yes, you still can summarize the plot. Yes, you can still say what happened. But really what matters, and if you look at the standards, what they really need to start doing is talking about the purpose, the motivation, the technique, the style, the writer's choices, the construction of the text. It's all about what the author does and not so much what the author says. And there's a major, major change there. Are you writing down?
Oh, yeah, I was.
Good. Yeah, I figured. Either that or I lost you, so I wanted to make sure I didn't lose you.
I'm sorry. No,
you're fine. No.
Writing down a skill library.
Yeah, you're fine. So let me show you how I got here again.
Okay.
From anywhere on the website, you can click on Skill Library.
Okay.
Anywhere. And then you choose what you're working on. So are you writing? Are you speaking? Are you reading fiction? Are you reading nonfiction? So a lot of your content teachers are going to live over here, right? And they're reading nonfiction. Then when I'm in them reading nonfiction, there's my process. Now the process is so important that we have its own page. See this down at the bottom? So if you say, "Oh, I really like all this language. How do I get that on a handout?" So we have 5 steps to confident reading as a handout. And we have it for every grade level. And they just get cuter and cuter as they go down. So this is our 5 steps to confident reading for 1st grade. I'll open it up for you.
Oh, that's cute. I'm getting into the elementary mode.
Yes, it's different. It is definitely different. But you know what's interesting is even though our stuff gets cute, it's still sophisticated.
Yeah, it still covers the 5 steps. So.
Yeah, a lot of things I see in elementary are almost hokey. They're like silly. And I don't think I want to be silly. Okay, so middle high. Let me just take you here. So here's the page called the guide. So this is exactly what you're seeing on the website. But what I just added this morning, we add things new every single day. What I just added this morning was this one. So I stripped the language.
Oh, okay.
And then I added some images that people might recognize as cross-curricular.
Yeah, for science and social studies.
Right. And so there's this one. And then, high school teachers get a little snooty and they think they're really cool. So I made one stripped out of images.
Okay.
So now it's just kind of like the nuts and bolts of what the reading process is, right?
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay. So this is these are the five steps posters. And why is that important? Well, because when we're talking about our skill library, that's one way that we organize our skills is by the 5 steps. And then we have our purposes up here. Now, another way we organize our skills is by the standards. So if you go to the skill library and you click on nonfiction or fiction and you scroll to the bottom of the steps, you'll see building DOK, the depth of knowledge, and you'll see college and career readiness standards. If you click on college and career readiness standards, you're going to be taken to this section. Now, you can go there, or you can just click on standards at the very top of the navigation. If I click on the top of the navigation, I'm going to be taken to literacy standards by state.
Yeah, this is the way I went the other day.
Okay. And then you can go ahead and choose, right, your state. And then you guys can choose your reading, writing, speaking. So I'm going to choose reading. And then I'm going to choose 7th grade. And I'm going to choose history, let's say. And I'm going to press go. Now I'm seeing the history standards for 7th grade right here. That's RH1.
Okay.
RH2. And look what we do. We take our skills from the skill library and we align them to the standard. Then we pull eCoach conversations like our blog that we talked about different things, teaching practices, what have you, and we've taken them and aligned them. So right here, this is for RH1 for history. All of this supports the teaching of RH1.
This is awesome.
All of this supports the teaching of RH2.
Because I know I used to support social studies and science. And that was always hard getting them to understand if they didn't have a literacy background.
Right.
Getting them to understand that they really were doing the literacy standards, but they needed to look at different resources.
Right.
That's neat.
So this is all of the standards for reading history. And what's great is these updated to 7th grade history. All I have to do now is I can go into history and I click my drop down. You can't see it, but it's showing different content areas. I click science and I press go, and now look at this, 7th grade reading standards for science, and I can come down and I'm looking now at the science standards and looking at the skills to help. That one needs to change. I'll work on that. That one should not be there. Let's see, update. Device. Okay. There's so many of these standards and skills. Sometimes they get mischecked or something. It's crazy. And then short story. Okay. All right. Another place that you can go to help your teachers is our tools. So if you go up to the top in the navigation and click tools, we have something called a writing prompt builder. Have you seen this?
Yes, I started playing around with that one.
Okay.
But I got sidetracked, but I put it.
Yeah.
Looking at it.
Do you understand it enough, or do you want me to go over it?
No, if you could go over it, because I started playing with it, but again, I had to shut down and run someplace else. But I was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of our most popular tools. So let's choose elementary.
Okay.
Let's choose nonfiction. And then we have choices now. We can do reading standards, speaking standards, or writing standards. And I know that sometimes people say, well, what do you mean? If this is a writing prompt builder, isn't it just for writing? Mm-hmm. But this is where we get lost and where we don't teach our standards completely. Speaking standards have prompts just as much as reading standards have prompts. And what reading asks you to do is different than what writing asks you to do. And sometimes you want to write about what you read, and sometimes you want to speak about what you write. So there's questions to ask of all types of reading, writing, and speaking. So what we've done is we've created a place where you can click on reading, and then you see all the reading standards. And if you click on speaking, the speaking standards show up. So if I click on, let's say, SL5, SL5 for elementary talks a lot about students reading stories out loud, students listening to stories out loud, students discussing opinions out loud. So if I look at the standards, I come back and I look at these and say, wow, these are doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. So SL5, speaking and listening, says tell a story. So look what the prompt does. Tell a true story about a time you, and then you just fill this in. About a time you played in the rain. And I actually can change this prompt. See that? I'm manipulating the prompt in real time. A lot of prompt templates online are fixed, right? They're just kind of stuck there, so the teacher has to cut and paste them and
paste like the frames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it says tell your story in order, use sensory details to bring your story to life. And so now you've got yourself a prompt. Now there's add-ons. If you want to use some add-ons down here, add details, complete sentences, and punctuation. So let's say you wanted to add complete sentences and punctuation. You click on it, and then you say, I'm going to speak, right? So I'm going to speak in complete sentences and use, so you don't use punctuation when you speak. So you say speak in complete sentences and use maybe appropriate voice. Yeah.
That's nice.
Now I'm going to click away, and Natalie, who's our online coach, is going to tell us you're going to lose what you're going to do. So watch. I click on writing, and if I click on another template, let's say W3, and then I say, now see, W3 is all narrative. So first favorite story, informative place that you've been, story about a pet, tell a real story, tell imaginative story. So I click true personal story and see where she says, whoa, 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 whoa. If you click this, all the work you just did is going to be erased. And I say, oh, okay. And then you just tell here, chronological order. If you haven't taught them chronological, you just change it to order. Use sensory details. So all of these are in here. Now look how they change. If I go to reading, R2.
It changes the topic.
It changes the topic, right? So it says, in the text blank, there is a problem. Discuss the problem with a small group. That's because this one, let's see. Oh, because you can discuss a problem or you can write about a problem. So that's another thing that we've done, is that we have both given you prompts to talk about and given you prompts to write about. Does that make sense? So do you see where this says discuss a problem?
Yes.
Look down here, it says summarize a problem.
Right.
And so now they're not going to talk about it. So anytime we want them to discuss, we usually write the word discuss in the little stem here. So discuss. In your opinion, why should da-da-da-da-da, right? List details from text, explain why you think da-da-da-da. Use visuals, display, enhance, clarify. So there's standards that ask students to use visuals. They have to use presentation tools. So that's what that's about. So this is the prompt. We have over 160 prompts. I use this all the time because they're already written. I just go in and grab them.
And so the context information, so if I'm writing, if I have a short story, that I can paste it in there?
So the context is going to be more like, for the past 3 weeks,
okay.
right? We have studied, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Today you will have a chance to, so it's more about like the context for them in the writing situation. Or you can say, imagine, you are given a job, given a publishing job, whatever. So it's all about the context. Now, in the planner, in our lesson plans, you can build prompts in there and put text and everything. So if you click on lesson plans, and let's just click on 7th grade for now, right here. These are lesson plans that people have built using our materials and prompts. So these are all lesson plans that teachers have built for 7th grade. So this is cyberbullying from Mrs. Talent.
I was gonna say the monsters are due on Maple Street. We read that one.
Yeah, and we're not going to have every title, of course, but we're getting there. We're getting more and more people adding. So this one has a prompt: write a multi-paragraph paper in your classmates which you examine the causes behind bullying, especially cyberbullying. These are the skills from our skill library that this teacher chose for this lesson. The text is here. And then when you want to teach it, you press Zoom. And this is the whole lesson. And when I want to move to one slide or the next section, I can use my arrows. And I basically go through the lesson. Content standards, essential question, performance task, that's the prompt, the handouts for the prompt, the rubric for the prompt, a video to teach how to mark prompts, sentence starters to help talk about the prompt. So watch this. So let's say they're analyzing a prompt and you want them to talk about it. You just open this up. So what did you circle? What did you underline? Why did you do that? In which order did you number the directive verbs in the prompt? Who is the intended audience? What sources? And these are language stems for discussion. So that what the planner does is it pulls all the resources together by a simple click of a button.
Okay. That's neat.
So I'll show you on a small scale how to use all that. So back in our skill library, where we were to begin with, let's click on Read 1, Speak 2, Write 3, because it's one of my favorite cross-content skills. And it's also one of our top 10. So see all these handouts for Read 1, Speak 2, Write 3? Now, in order to navigate them, instead of just getting completely overwhelmed, we've titled them. So this is what you would use to teach the skill. This is what you would use to assess. This is what you'd use to plan. This is what you would use to practice in different subject areas. So this is translated in Spanish. And then this is differentiate and support. So this is where you would get your language starters. See this? So if I'm summarizing ideas in a textbook, these are sentence starters, academic sentence starters for textbooks. Inside the handout are actual sentence starters as well. They're right here. So when they're speaking their starters and when they're writing their starters.
This is neat.
Now, the small version of what I showed you is right here. See where it says interactive lesson?
Mm-hmm.
Have you clicked on this yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay, this is really cool. So when you click on this, the whole website transforms into a presentation.
So you can use it on your whiteboard.
Yep. And so then I go through and see the handouts.
Yeah.
And it has instructions already. Read a portion of your text, discuss with your partner, write 3 main ideas or supporting details. And then you go to the next. Here's what I expect. You're going to silently read the passage of text. Discuss each passage for 30 seconds or more. Record the main ideas in the text in your notes or in your summary sentences handout. Here's some sentence starters to help. Here's a reflection for the end of the day. While they're working, you have a timer. Look up at the top right corner.
Mm.
You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a collaborate tool. This is one of my favorites. Group size, rows, class size 36. What do you guys usually have, class size?
About 25 at the school that I'm at right now.
Okay, so 25. I'm going to press assign, which is going to give them all numbers. And you might say, oh no, John, I'm actually not rows of 6, I'm rows of 5. Okay, assign. See that? And now I press mix based on group size of 4. Mix.
Cool.
And now it just randomly mixed them. Or group size of 2. Mix. Then I can pick a student randomly, I can pick a group randomly, or I can pick a student inside of a group randomly.
That's neat.
Isn't that cool for a collaboration tool?
Yeah, that causes all the students to participate because you don't know who they're going to call on.
That's right. Yeah. So then I exit out of here and it takes me right back to read 1, speak 2, write 3. So there's a lot going on just in this little area right here. Okay, so that's kind of the tour of the teacher assistant. So how might, from what I've shown you then, how might some of these ideas support or attach to balanced literacy?
It's awesome. I mean, you have the resources to teach the components, and everything is done for you. You just have to put it together. But not necessarily put it together because it's already together. You just have to go on your site. I think it'll, especially with dealing with the elementary schools that we're dealing with, I feel like this will help them see that it's not really, as hard as they're making it.
Right.
And then going back to the aha moment that we had about the cycle of independence, that will really help them understand that, you can't just say, well, I taught this, but because the text may differ, that you may have to change what you're doing. I mean, start the cycle over again. Sure,
absolutely. Yeah, you start the cycle over again. So let's take a look at some of those things, because now we're down to half hour, and you've been excellent. You've been an excellent participant.
Thank you.
I was worried. I said, am I just going to be talking to myself this whole time?
No.
Okay, so cycle of independence. I just kind of asked you that question, right? How can literacy TA support balanced literacy? And I think one of the things is that the support component. What does it mean to have kids working together successfully? What does it look like when I'm starting to release them a little bit, but I'm still supporting them? So we have those language starters. We have the collaborate tool that puts them into groups. We have the expectations. We have rubrics for every single skill on literacy TA. That means that I can assess every step in the process instead of always assessing the product. And I think that's one of the problems in education, is that we too often assess the product, and the product doesn't tell us enough about what happened while the child was either building the poster or writing the essay. We don't know where the breakdown was. Is it that they didn't understand the prompt? Is it that they don't understand how to read? Is it that they don't understand how to write complete sentences or organize their ideas? Or maybe they don't know how to analyze, or maybe they don't know how to integrate a source. So at which point do we say, this is where we need to stop and teach? But because we assess the product, the end essay, the speech, the presentation, the board, the product or the project board, we don't know what happened. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't until we slow down and teach all of the components and pieces and assess those pieces that we begin to understand more clearly what it is that kids struggle with, how I can help, and what new supports I need to put in place in order to help kids move forward.
I agree, because I look at the template, that particular teacher that was teaching Author's Purpose, just looking at that particular template would have helped the kids understand how going through the text can help them identify that.
Right. Absolutely.
And then if the way it broke it down, you would know which parts the kids were not understanding.
Yes. If you're able to break it down and you're able to figure out where's the mix-up, where are they not understanding? Yeah, exactly as you said. And then I can make good decisions about that, right? I'm now able to, what do they say, teach it right the first time.
Yeah, but also you can go back and differentiate. So when you look at that we do, I'm sorry, they do. Mm-hmm. So I can pull in my small groups and be more explicit and purposeful in what I'm doing, because I know where I actually need to remediate instead of getting into, like you said, at the end where I get this poster and Tanya didn't do anything right on the poster, and I'm mad because I'm wondering, well, I taught it, and it goes back to that cycle of instruction.
Right. Yeah, I taught it. Why didn't they understand it? You know,
yeah.
And it's something maybe bigger or smaller
mm-hmm.
than what we think. Right. Excellent. So I put this slide together just as a way to kind of bring our focus to a point. And these are, if I'm not mistaken, the 4 components of balanced literacy. So focused lesson, guided instruction, collaborative learning, and independent learning, right?
Yes.
So the focused lesson would be our skill guides that I talked to you about, the examples, the classroom presentation where the website transforms into a presentation. The guided instruction could be formative assessments, the strategic grouping we were talking about, and then the collaborative learning could be the collaborative tool.
Good afternoon.
I'm gonna have to mute it. He's coming on with
no problem.
If you hear my voice, clap twice. If you hear my voice, clap 3 times.
So then the teacher guides and the collaborative activities. So we have all the pieces to support the components. And then during the independent learning, we talked about that success tracker. And the success tracker is adapted from Marzano's Art and Science of Teaching. And that's a great way for students to see where am I at right now in this process? How well am I able to stand on my own 2 feet? Have I really transferred the knowledge from teacher to me, or am I still dependent on teacher or my peers? So the cycle of independence, right, is really an instructional model that helps subject area teachers deliver balanced literacy, is a way of thinking about it. It's not in competition of it. It's not to replace it. It's just the way we think about instruction and how instruction happens. And so when I talked to you earlier about how do we start to move students into independence, one of the ways is by Daniel Willingham. He talks about this idea of distributed practice. And distributed practice, what that means is giving students opportunities to learn something over and over again until they reached mastery. So for example, in my classroom, we're marking poetry, and we have marked 6 poems up to date. And now they're ready to be assessed. But I assessed them, and I gave them a grade, but I didn't put the grade in the grade book. They used the success tracker, and they colored in what their score was. And now we have now I have their attention, because they say, wait a second, did you put that in the grade book? And I said, no. Oh, good, thank you. And I said, but what do we need to work on? What are some of the areas that we can improve on? How can we mark poetry more proficiently? What do we need to change? What do we need to learn? And they start creating their own plans for their own learning so that they take control and ownership of that. And then we start the cycle all over again. And then I give them another assessment to see where they are. So distributed practice is about doing something over a period of time, not just doing it once. Now, every time I give them a new poem, they're reading for new purposes, they have new challenges, and that's why I need to give them so many different experiences so that they can better prepare for when they have a new poem cold, they've never seen it before. They know how to read the poem and mark it the way poetry can be marked and analyzed. So this is that model I was telling you about earlier, where you can have kids in different places throughout the year, and you can be in different places with a skill. So let's say making predictions is something you started with. That's the top arrow. Let's say making predictions is a place that you started in the beginning of the year, and then you started a new skill called summarizing main ideas. Let me see if I can make this bigger for you. There we go. Perfect. And so then you have making summarizing main ideas. So this cycle is going to continue to turn throughout the year as I do making predictions. And then I start a new cycle with a new skill, summarizing main ideas. And I start a third cycle with marking a text. And this doesn't mean that the teachers have to do more work. It just means that they're going to be introducing new skills to students, and they're going to be introducing them at a new place. So I might be independently making predictions over here, my students making independent predictions, and then over here my students might be working in groups to summarize main ideas, the third step in the reading process. And then in the fourth step in the reading process, analysis, we might be still in the I do, where I'm still showing them how to do analysis. So they're at different places in the cycle. Instead of thinking, well, my kids have reached mastery in one area, they must have reached mastery in all areas. And that's not going to yield the best results. Teachers are not going to achieve their goals if they don't think about what kids need to start and how to move to the next level. Does that one make sense?
It does.
Yeah, and if when teachers are comfortable, they can start realizing, like, okay, so every kid doesn't have to be at the 100%. Every kid, we don't have to be at every skill doing it all independently. This is a process. This is a process that we're gradually handing over to our students, and they're going to become more proficient in certain areas as we go. Right? And then as they get even more proficient, so let's say making predictions, I may start increasing the complexity of whatever they're doing, so that I might need to come back to the I do, we do, because now it's getting a lot harder, right? I think it's funny, sometimes we make predictions on text that the title is so silly, it's almost like ridiculous that we're asking what do they think the text is about. But I'm really thinking about predictions inside, right? Making predictions of what an author will do 2 paragraphs in, 3 paragraphs in. Where do you think this is going? What do you think he or she's going to introduce next? Why do you think that? What evidence in the text? So this is a little bit more sophisticated than just predicting the main idea. This would be more about predicting what authors are going to say next or do next, right? How do we know the author is going to give us a visual? Well, because they said that it's best understood if we if we can imagine it. Okay, so if they say that, then what do you think? Well, they're either going to describe it or they're going to give us a picture. Okay, good. I think that's a good prediction. That's so essential to students reading, is their ability to, as they read, what's going to happen, what information is coming. Okay, so then we offer yet another layer of support in addition to the cycle of independence, is our skill instruction. So the skill instruction pacing guide can be found on Literacy TA. And that one, let's see if I can exit out of here. Let's see what I'm looking at. There we go. The skill instruction pacing guide is going to be in teacher guides, which I haven't talked to you about, is up here. Okay. And I really like this one because it in a very simple way explains good teaching practices through the release of responsibility.
Okay.
So I'm going to click on, so I'm in teacher guides, I'm going to scroll down. And I'm going to click on literacy skill planning. And on literacy skill planning, there's another link called skill instruction pacing guide.
Mm-hmm.
And the skill instruction pacing guide, this is all like explains what it is and what it does, but I'll get just to the handout so you can kind of see it.
This is very helpful. I have the school that I'm at now, the instructional coach and I she was discussing a teacher that's struggling with planning. So this is very helpful.
Yeah, this could help. So here's the skill pacing guide for middle high. This is the skill pacing guide for elementary. Which one would you like to look at?
Middle high, because I'm at a middle school now.
Okay. So here is the pacing guide.
Oh,
and it's broken into what do students do? What does the teacher do?
Okay.
And the whole idea behind this is, if you were to slow down great teaching, what are teachers doing? So back to the author, right? What does the author do? Well, what does the teacher do? And then while the teacher's doing it, what are the students doing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then as you go down the page, you start to see that release. So the kids go from mimicking and anticipating, to use two verbs from the first row, to collaboratively discussing. See that?
And modeling.
But they model, not the teacher. Look at that.
Yeah.
They go up in front of the class and model how to do something. Then, because they're still working with the class, right? They're still together. Then you start to see independence after 18 weeks. And that's a ballpark. I mean, that's not necessarily, sorry, not after 18. That's on the end of the 12th. So the 13th week, you could probably say that kids are able to do things on their own if every week they're practicing.
So with our units being 9 weeks, we would have to look at the pacing and look at what we're doing within those particular 9 weeks.
Or you can just adjust. I mean, you could do 4.5 weeks instead of 6. You know.
This is our last call for dismissal. This is our last call for dismissal. Thank you.
So you could definitely divide this into whatever you need it to be. Does that make sense? But this is just a great way. So I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to find this. In our skill library, remember those planning tools? They were all on that one, on every page. I'll just go to a different one. I'll go to analyzing prompts. On every skill page, it's right over here, plan your lesson. It's on every single page. So you don't ever lose track of it.
Okay.
And when you're sitting down with a teacher and you're walking through balanced literacy, use this planning journal. So it says the purpose of, say, summarizing main ideas is to blah, blah, blah. And then I want to use this skill to help my students slow down their reading and deepen their comprehension, okay?
Mm-hmm.
In order to teach summarizing main ideas in my classroom, I will need to do the following. Find a text that has clear ideas, photocopy the text for all my students to write on, log into literacyta.com and use the interactive lesson plan, present the rubric so students know my expectations. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It walks them through, and then this is a sample of like what are we looking for here? So this is a sample of what you could write. Then the next page is, I plan to teach or practice summarizing main ideas when my students are reading what? I plan to practice, in order to use this skill, I have to make the following modifications. So maybe some students need the handouts directly, some students might need iPads, some students might need whatever. And then additional thoughts. This is a great planning tool to sit down with a teacher and walk them through the decision making that has to happen in order to execute a great lesson. This is not what you would call a lesson, you know, like the 5-step lesson plan. This is not a 5-step lesson plan. This is just how do I teach a certain
How do I teach what I'm about to present to the children?
Right. I think if you walked your teacher through with a plot and she wanted purpose, she might stop and go, wait a second.
Wait a minute. That's not a tool. Yeah.
This isn't even going to get them close to, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and if it was a lesson on plot, it was great because she pulled in videos and, you know.
Sure.
But yeah, that wasn't the focus for today.
Yeah, so then that is an important piece for planning. And then if we go back, so I'm going to jump back into my account. I'm going to go back into our training and go back into the cycle of independence and back into our presentation. We were right here. Mm-hmm. So then this is our last activity, which I think is a good amount of time to do. What we're going to do is at the bottom of this page, or sorry, at the next activity, you're going to see a Google Doc. Mm-hmm. And let me see if we can. Oh, are you able to access it? Did you click on it?
I'm sorry, I was still looking at your screen. I can pull it up on. Let's see.
I wonder if we're going to have to do. I think we're going to have to go through the agenda. So on the agenda, there is a link that says Start.
Okay, let me click that.
Let's see.
Okay, I'm there.
Okay, and I am not. There we go. Yeah, oh good, good. So the idea here was just to kind of create a scenario, and you can see that I had the rows for your colleagues. It was to create a scenario that gets us thinking about the I do, we do, they do, you do. So what literacy skills can teachers model, and then we would write just one skill. So maybe the two of us can do, maybe you can do one, I can do one.
Okay.
So I can do, let's say, marking a text. And what I want to do is, how do teachers, so I do. So marking a text.
You have a guest in the main office. Mr. Hale, you have a guest in the main office. Thank you.
I can explicitly model how to identify words to circle and ideas underline. I would ask my students to mimic me, and I'm okay if you just want to do this with me, if you don't feel comfortable enough with the pacing guide.
I was trying to go back to the. I wanted to do a writing one. Let's see.
Let's circle and underline what I have marked in my text. Circle and underline is. Circle and underline. And then how do I involve students?
On the interruption, we need all after-school all-star teachers to report to their classrooms as well as their students. All after-school all-star teachers and students, please report to your classrooms at this time. Thank you. Ms. Ford, please come to the main office at this time. Ms. Ford, please come to the main office at this time. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. This is great. A lot of teachers wouldn't miss that step that you're underlining key vocabulary that signals, right?
Mm-hmm.
That signals the cause and effect relationship. Awesome.
And put that in parentheses too, those signal words.
Yeah. pushing you off the page. Sorry about that. Oh yeah, that's good. We were kind of on the same thinking there with the assessment, with the groups assessing each other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking though, with mine, the teacher would have to make copies of it, but you know, it just depends on if they maybe had it, if they had access to maybe scan it and make copies so that each student could annotate the test.
I have my, yeah, it's a great problem. I have my students print out copies. Usually it was only 4 or 5, but if you had, so you could do that if you had 5 groups.
Mm-hmm.
You can have them print 4 copies of their work so that they'd have a clean copy for every group. And you know, I used to work with a librarian and say, you know, we're Title I. Can you recognize that my kids might need some printing help, and let them print? Because we had a rule at our school: never more than 1 copy. Because the problem is that kids press print like 8 times because it's not fast enough.
And Ms. Wood, please come to the main office at this time.
And because they press print 8 times, you know, the printer's going nuts. So I used to say, look, it's not a mistake. They're doing it on purpose. And that worked pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Great ideas. And then it should, for some reason, if we refresh our screen on Literacy TA,
Mm-hmm.
on the cycle of independence, and scroll down to the doc, we'll see our ideas there.
Okay. Let me get back. Go to my account. And then
So if you scroll down on cycle of independence.
Okay. Yep, I see it.
Yeah, kind of cool, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so the last task, and it'll be short because I know we're out of time, is for you just to do a ticket out the door. Do you see that at the bottom?
Let's see. Yep.
If you could just, and it might be just that aha moment about the cycle of independence. I'm okay.
Notes.
I'm okay if you want to you use that again. But there's 2 reasons for this. It's a good way for you to close out the session, and it's a good way for us to kind of document that you were here and that you learned something today. And then when you're done, just press save, and it should turn into a green check mark, and you're good to go. And then we meet again on Thursday. So if there's anything else, I will sign off and say goodbye to you.
Thank you so much. This was very fun.
Good. Yeah, it was fun. I had a good time. It's good to work with you.
I'm glad I had the opportunity to sign on this time.
Yeah, and not get pulled away.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Sometimes
Well, I appreciate.
You just have to hide to get stuff done, right?
Yes. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your participation, and I look forward to working with you again soon in 2 days.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.